Welcome along to our football coverage here on CBS Sports HQ. It was a chaotic ending to the Gold Cup final, but in the end, Miles Robinson was the difference in extra time, and the US men's national team win the Gold Cup in Sin City. Ian Joy, Jimmy Conrad and Heath Pearce here with you. Jimmy, I'm going to start with you because not only did the US win, two of your bets came through, so a big night for you, and what a massive win that was for the US. Yeah, well, Jimmy, I'm just shocked that two of these came through. What did you make of the performance? I mean, talk to us, because I know that you were just so excited to see the US victorious with the Gold Cup. So
Jimmy's frozen. Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is, Poppy? He's celebrating.
He is.
He's celebrating. His stream's frozen. He's obviously, not ready for us just yet with his jersey off. He's throwing his clothes around the house. He's excited right now because of that incredible victory. I'll take the spot right now because this was an amazing game. I never predicted to see this game. I thought the US national team would have had to have performed in an ugly fashion to get the victory, but we saw a lot of quality. Sure, it was lacking in quality from both sides when it came into the final third. In front of goal, Mexico had so many chances. They just didn't take them. The US had two or three very, very good chances, and they should have taken them. But to go into extra time in the fashion that they did do, it was really remarkable. The game was a fun watch. It was end-to-end action. And I will say this, as I mentioned it before, I thought this would be a bit more ferocious, a bit more aggressive. I thought the referee would have a tough game. The official was outstanding today. He really kept control of the game from the first minute. He had control inside and outside the lines. I thought it was terrific to see that type of performance because it needed it. But the quality was lacking in the final third from both sides until the very end, when a beautiful cross from Acosta and a finish from Robinson won the game and won the Gold Cup for the United States. Outstanding finish to the game. That was joy all over.
Joy to the world. Well, you said you were expecting a chippy match. Heath, you've played in these matches many a times. We were talking about it in the pre-game, how the atmosphere would play such a big factor today. How impressed were you with this US side, considering how many young players they had on the roster and in the 11 that may not have been in this position before?
All things considered, I think they did a great job. I think early on, the first few moments, we saw them try to combine some passes and break through the lines, and I thought, wow, these guys are going to try to play through everything. And then as the game went on, they played a little bit more risk adverse, but the fight was there from the very start. You could tell that there was a representation. I know each one of these players look back to that Nations League final as a bar that's been set. You don't want to be the next team that loses to Mexico after that team resiliently fought back after going down early to now to get a result. Then you want to be part of the team that wins and keeps that streak alive. I remember that in 2009 when I played in the Gold Cup final after the 2007 Gold Cup final that the US won from a Benny Philhaber banger. I was so nervous. I was thinking about, I don't want to be part of this group. We ended up losing that game, but that was in my head, and I thought they really rose to the challenge. There is no way to simulate a US-Mexico match. There's no way to simulate CONCACAF matches. So I think to go through this for these players was a really huge step, even though I thought for long stretches it was mostly about fight and not about the play. But you're playing in a final, you're playing to get that trophy, and they got that today.
Well, so a lot of credit goes to the players, but how much credit do you give Greg Berhalter, who's the fastest US men's national team coach to reach 25 wins? We know he's missing a lot of his players that are playing overseas in Europe, and today he gets the job done with what really is a B squad for him. Not
necessarily just getting the job done, though, Poppy. Getting the job done in emphatic fashion defensively. Not conceding a goal again. I mean, Turner was terrific again in that first half. Wonderful save. Second half, sure, he was there. He did his job, and that's what I love to see about Greg Berhalter, the way he organises his side. The chemistry that these players were playing with in that match right there, you could tell it meant something to them. The work rate, the determination, the passion for the country, the badge. I love to see that from players who are fighting to get into his World Cup roster and World Cup qualifying roster, because the roster right now, after winning a Gold Cup in the fashion that he just did, made that squad just even bigger than he probably thought he had. It's really incredible, the job he has done putting these players together. And there's only 4 players, if I'm not mistaken, from the players who were involved in this Gold Cup who are our European-based players. The rest are domestic-based players. So this is great for Major League Soccer. It's great for US Soccer, for the development. A lot of young players involved who have gained so much experience. But for me, the man of the match was Acosta today, but the man of the tournament was Matt Turner. I thought he was absolutely terrific, outstanding.
Yeah, I fully agree there, Ian. Those are my two man of the match, man of the tournament as well. And to go back to Greg Berhalter a little bit, one of the things that I thought, I was like, you know, and Jimmy and I were talking about this before the pre-show was, is he overthinking this? Is he going to Pep Guardiola this and make all these changes and overthink the lineup? And you're changing out a back line that you had all this time to do. And he ended up switching those players around the 60th minute and making those changes back to the team that he had in the last match. And so I thought that he did well to get the most out of those players. Those players rose to the occasion. They became better players. George Bello, no experience stepping into this game and really holding his own. You could see sometimes his eyes were so big and just really embracing that moment. But I thought it was so well done from Greg Berhalter to be able to constantly tinker his lineup and show the confidence, right? A lot of times we see this faux confidence from coaches where they'll make these changes because they want to show that they're in control. But it looked like he had a plan. As that 60th minute hit, he made the changes that looked like they were part of a plan. And as the game went on, he started to really see what he was going to need to go into extra time. And I thought it was overall just a fantastic tournament from him. I think the team didn't play great overall. I don't think they got better game to game, which is what you want in a tournament. But here they are champions. And now you can look back. And it's better to learn as champions than to go home early and try to figure out what happened wrong.
Heath, what is it exactly that you recognise from Greg Berhalter? You've played with him, you've played against him, you've watched him make this transition into becoming a very successful coach at the club level in Major League Soccer. Now with the national team, two very quick trophies that he's won against your biggest rival. I mean, what are you noticing about Greg that he's taken from player to coach now and being so successful with?
It's really hard to explain, but you know, in a show that I have with Mark McKenzie, who played in that Nations League final, leading up to that Nations League, him and I were talking to former players, current players about CONCACAF and what it was like, and I would try to explain to them over and over what it means and that feeling and the energy and everything that goes into these matches. And you can't simulate that. You can't coach that. You can't teach that unless you've been in it. And I think Greg has done a great job of being able to step into those environments and instill that into players and try to show them and tell them what to expect in these types of games and build on that confidence. You know, we heard a lot about Gyasi Zardes and the criticism he's gotten over the years. And if you look at his goal scoring records, you want to be critical of him. But he has so many of these intangibles. And Greg Berhalter's belief in him is just an example of the type of manager that he is. Another thing that I found interesting about their camps is just how busy they are. From the moment they wake up in the morning to the moment they go to bed, they've got a full schedule. I've seen screenshots of these schedules where he's got them in video and forcing them to be students of the game and forcing them out of their comfort zone so they're not just sitting playing FIFA. And he believes in downtime and things like that. But he's really instilled that confidence. And the last thing I would say about Greg is that he never took what he did as a player and thought that that was going to lead him into being a good manager. He had that same approach to being a player that made him successful as he is as a manager now. So he never looked at it. It was like, oh, I played in the Bundesliga. I was this, I was that. I was a World Cup type of player. He started from scratch and he put that same blue collar mentality into him. And I remember his early days in Columbus having conversations with him, and it was a completely different person. This guy who wanted to be a tactician and he was a student and he wanted to be so great. And I think fast forward now, all of these years, he's been in a lot of different environments, and now here he is leading this national team with a former player background, with a current manager background, and a lot of different experiences to apply to this team. Yeah, the word obsession creeps into my head when I think about Greg Berhalter as the player. We recognize the familiarity of Greg Berhalter, what he was. He was obsessed with winning, from winning battles out there on the field, and now he's obsessed with coaching and doing it right, man management, making sure he's successful. It's a joy to watch him do his business, and obviously as a friend of a show, to get to know him, how he's going about his business with US Soccer, it's fabulous to watch. Winning 2 trophies very quickly, Poppy, like he has just done. It's really incredible, and to do it against Mexico, even better. And on the way, he's managed to give so many players so much valuable experience, as you were talking about there, Heath, and maybe raise some question marks that he wasn't expecting. Yeah. We saw Zach Steffen get injured in the Nations League final. Ethan Horvath was fantastic. Now we've seen Matt Turner fantastic in this competition. So how tough is it going to be for Greg Berhalter now ahead of World Cup qualifiers? These are great problems to have, but terrible problems to have when you have to really make a decision. I thought Robinson was great. Sands were great. I thought Sam Vines was great, and he's going to make that move abroad and put himself in a new challenging situation. So he's got a number of things to look at, but the one that's going to be the hardest is Matt Turner. This is my player of the tournament. He kept this team in it. And it's never a great sign when your goalkeeper is your best player on your team and also the best player in the tournament in terms of goal-denying saves that he had to make. But you need a player like that on the field. But I think he's making a case for himself. You know, I tweeted it out early in the game. I was like, I'm hearing rumors about all of our young players. We're in this generation now, as Greg Berhalter said, we're reaching critical mass of players moving abroad or playing at big clubs in Europe. But I haven't heard anything about Matt Turner and a move. And as the tournament went on, you had Sam Vines, you're having links with George Bello, you have Robinson being linked to clubs, Sands, every single player in this team is being linked to a club in Europe. But the best player, I haven't been hearing anything. And so I'd be shocked if we don't wake up tomorrow and find out that there are some rumors swirling of trying to close the deal before the transfer window closes for Matt Turner, because he was a step above the rest. And for a guy who lacks that international experience, certainly looked like he's been doing it for decades.
Yeah, he's got that composure, Heath, which is really impressive to me. In Major League Soccer, I've recognized it. He's getting the recognition in the domestic league, no doubt about it. But on the national level, he made that save in the first half and then immediately got up, and you could see the smile on his face and a little bit of a chat back and forth with a Mexican player. And it shows you he's relaxed in that moment, in that situation. And that's exactly what you need from your goalkeeper. You need him to enjoy these moments. You need him to be ready and obviously recognize the big occasion that he's playing in, but also come up with the goods. And shot stopping wise, outstanding. I think there's still a bit of work to do with his feet. You clearly witnessed that in the early stages of the game, but I think there's room for improvement for him, absolutely. But what he has shown in the 5 shutouts as well in this tournament, outstanding. You mentioned James Sands. I cover him a lot for NYCFC. He was a nobody really to Greg Berhalter and US Soccer Federation. Obviously had played some games in the youth system, but as far as the full team goes, didn't really think he was going to get a chance. And to finish the tournament like that after a shaky semi-final, I should say, he was very, very good tonight. Again, didn't put a foot wrong. But Matthew Hoppe really catches my attention. This kid has got something about him. I think he's special. And he's going to be one to watch for the future. Big time.
And even more question marks he brings around the attack. We talk about the back line and more good questions for him to have, Heath. But on the other side of Greg Berhalter, we talked about Tata Martino and the immense pressure that he's under. I mean, what does this mean for him now moving forward ahead of such a critical time for Mexico?
It's incredible to me that a manager that's had such good results for a national team is under pressure, but we know that's what comes with the job. And Tata Martino seems to thrive in scenarios where his job, or he feels his job, is on the line. I thought this game actually shifted a lot when Hector Moreno went out. They lost a little bit of that leadership and that calm in the back line. He's such a talented player for them, but Tata Martino now has some decisions to make, right? He said you have to win this Gold Cup final. We looked at this U.S. team and said they're completely outmatched, but not a single moment went by in that game where we thought, okay, Mexico is a better team. Yes, Mexico got plenty of chances to win that game. The U.S. got plenty of chances to score goals in that game. And the same thing happened in the Nations League final. It was one of those unique situations where normally you see out a game like this and you go, okay, the better team won, or they didn't finish their number of chances and it was a lucky result for the other team. But these games are going both ways. And so I think I don't want to overread into Tata Martino's pressure as manager. I think they had plenty of chances to score. They had plenty of chances to win this. But when you look at the experience, 7 players that started in the Nations League final played it or started in this match. And they had plenty of talent, players playing at big clubs to be able to convert. But I look at both the U.S. and Mexico at the same way. I think both coaches and managers or managers are great. And they know how to lead these teams. It's just that there wasn't enough quality to convert in these moments. And I look at Jesse Zardes, I look at Daryl Dike, I look at Funes Mori, and they get these chances. And at the next level, somebody has to be able to finish those and put your team in front. A moment of brilliance. Obviously, Robinson comes up well in the end to create that moment of brilliance for the team. But for your attackers, they're getting into good spots, they're getting into decent positions, but they're not converting. And while you can have the best match in the world, if you're not scoring goals when you are a striker, you're not doing what you are paid to do or brought in to do. And I think that's a little bit of a downfall for this team. But overall, I think Tata Martino approached this tournament the right way. I think they continued to get better. They were one of the few teams. Yes, they were shaky against Canada, but they continued to get better. And for long stretches of this game, Mexico seemed to thrive in chaos. I just want to put that out there. They thrive in chaos. They love to make things just disruptive, 5-on-5 in every half, and everything's going crazy, challenges flying everywhere. And he seems to harness that quite well. I thought at one point when they were baiting the press from the U.S. and they were skipping it forward was a moment of genius for Tata Martino to address that and to identify that and tell the team, started the second half. Hey, if they're going to press, skip that line. We'll have 4 in the attack, and we'll go after them 4-on-4. And I thought that was working well. But I think, again, when you go back to it, Hector Moreno going out was a huge loss for them. But I don't want to overanalyze Tata Martino and his pressure, because I do think he had an overall good tournament. But it all comes down to results. He didn't get that against the U.S. Nations League. He didn't get that here. So perhaps the Federation of Mexico, FMF, feel differently.
Yeah, I'll overanalyze it if you want. No problem, Heath Pearce. I think that this is the game that maybe puts him on the hot seat that's probably even hotter than it was previously. You know, the Canada game was a real eye-opener for me, because it made me recognise that Canada mean business too in CONCACAF, certainly when it comes to World Cup qualifiers. You got to be worried about them. Tata Martino losing big finals against the United States is not a good thing either. So there's a lot to be worried about if you're the Mexican Federation. Trying to get your players playing for you, giving 100% was not a problem for Mexico. Their players worked their socks off. They ran, they created chances. They just didn't take them, and he touched on it very well there. Both sides didn't take those clear cut chances in front of goal. So they were lacking that killer instinct, that quality in front of goal that I think deserted both sides today. And Tata realised that it was almost good. It was almost perfect. It was almost the way he wanted it, but it wasn't quite there. Missing players through injuries, players going off, players coming on and then getting taken back off. Wasn't necessarily Mexico's tournament, even though it wasn't terrible. There's still a lot of room for improvement, and they got to be very careful when it goes through World Cup qualifying. Still absolutely a favourite to go through to the World Cup. No doubt in my mind about that. But I think Canada make it interesting. I think you've got to look at Costa Rica as well, and there's other nations who will cause problems. And for the US team now under Greg Berhalter, things are looking very rosy as they go now with those 2 trophies in the cabinet, celebrating, and a massive roster of players full of talented players who want to play in Greg Berhalter's World Cup team.
So Tata with a lot of question marks remaining, Greg Berhalter with a lot of questions answered. Heath, as Ian just said, what does this mean now for the US and their confidence moving forward into World Cup qualifiers?
I think it's huge. It shows a depth within this squad. Like we talked about before, this is difficult for Greg Berhalter. He's got some tough decisions to make. I think we're showing the depth of just the player development here. So they're good problems to have. I think the security of most of those A players is still there. But now you know that in a bind, when you're looking at the octagonal and all these difficult matchups, 3 games during fixture windows, you're going to have to rely on deeper rosters and more players to be able to contribute to qualify. And I think right now you're seeing a number of guys that could step in right away and contribute.
Yeah, I agree with you, Heath. Absolutely fantastic. And the youth, it's just exciting to watch. So many players, talented players, all want to play. It's nice to be Greg Berhalter right now.
So as the confetti sets in Sin City, we say goodnight to you from our HQ studio. It's a pleasure to have your company on this historic night. The US men's national team are your 2021 Gold Cup.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.